Hello, and welcome to Reimagining Love. I'm Dr. Alexandra Solomon. I have been studying relationships for over 20 years as a couples therapist, a professor, an award-winning author, and as a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. Now, I'm inviting you into this space each week as I dig into some of the toughest and most fascinating relational dilemmas of our time. If you want to discover how to create vibrant and loving relationships in your own life, you have come to the right place. This is Reimagining Love. Hi there. Welcome back to Reimagining Love. Today, we are delving into a very important application of all of the good relational self-awareness work that we do in this space together. And that application is money. You may be surprised to hear that billionaires get divorced at roughly the same rate as the general public, which demonstrates to us that actually there is no amount of money that protects couples from the tensions that can arise when finances are at play. I often say that money is a tricky topic because at one level, it's really concrete. It's dollars and cents. It's spending and saving. But at another level, the topic of money evokes deep and meaningful questions about our core belief, our sense of identity, our desires, our insecurities, and power and gender, and on and on. To help us explore all of this, I am joined by financial planning power couple Heather and Douglas Boneparth. Douglas Boneparth is the founder of Bonafide Wealth, a wealth management firm in New York City, and Heather Boneparth spent over a decade as a lawyer in the insurance industry before joining the family business as Bonafide Wealth's Director of Business and Legal Affairs. And together, they have co-authored The Millennial Money Fix, a book that helps millennials achieve financial freedom, and their newest book is Money Together, a book that helps couples approach difficult financial conversations. I first met the Boneparths when they interviewed me for their book, Money Together, and I am excited to be in conversation with them again. You're going to hear us talk about why money continues to be a source of tension for couples even after they have become objectively successful. You will hear us talk about financial infidelity, the role that shame plays in it, and the Boneparths' case for financial transparency in your intimate relationship. You're going to learn how to get past the tangible, more surface level topics around money to curiously dig deeper and explore why you and your partner feel the way that you do about money. Spoiler alert, that story likely had its roots long, long ago. And you're going to hear us discuss how to approach prenups. I know you're going to get a lot out of my conversation with Heather and Douglas Boneparth. Enjoy. Heather and Douglas, welcome to Reimagining Love. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we, our paths first crossed a while ago when Heather asked me to chat with her when you guys were researching this book. And I remember exactly where I was. We went for a walk together in my headphones, and I can just picture the path that we took. I loved the conversation. I had a chance to blurb the book then, and I was like, okay, they're also coming on the show because the book turned out so well, and it really does fill a need. So congratulations, and I'm glad to be in this conversation with you both now.
I cannot thank you enough for having your insights in the book, for your willingness to blurb the book, and for all of your kind words here today. Really, our conversation shaped so much of the discussion around power in our book, and I just can't thank you enough.
Can confirm. She talks about you a lot.
I do.
Oh, I love that.
I do.
I love that. Well, I've got a bunch of things I want to explore with both of you, but I want to start by asking you the question that I ask all of the guests on Reimagining Love. Are you ready for it?
Oh, we're ready.
Let's go.
Okay. All right, Heather and Douglas, I would like to hear from each of you how you are reimagining love in one of your important relationships these days.
Time.
Yeah.
Time. We are putting time at the forefront of so many important relationships in our life. And not just, it's about, I think, we had a real season of like a busy season of work, right? Like we recently put out a book. That was a 2-year process. And it really required us to sacrifice a lot of time with people that we love, with each other, with our children. And I think that in this next season of life, we're really looking, one, how can we spend the best quality of time with the people that we love? But also we look at each other and what we were missing from each other, not just, again, quality time between the two of us, but also like that is the greatest thing we could probably give one another is the time back to do some of the things that we want to do, the time we need to fill our own individual cups. So yeah, like I would say that's when we look at love and what we can be doing best right now is just focusing on time first.
There's a moment, Heather, was like, go to that thing with your friends from, college. How often do you get to meet with them? And, that's something I probably would not have been able to do and how busy we were over the last 2 years. And her just acknowledging like, hey, here's something that's going to fill up your cup and really, grow your heart. And yeah, I came back from that. I'm like, oh my God, it was the best night ever. And, rather than us being like, where should we go for dinner and do this? She's like, what do you need to do, what you need to do? And that's a really good example of how we're thinking about love. Now that was all love. Her showing me love and me getting love from friends.
Yes. It's so interesting because I think we often say when it comes to our relationships, it's the quality, not the quantity. But there is there's a baseline of quantity. Like you really have to put in the minutes and the hours of being with people. And in order to do that, those blocks of time have to be protected from other stuff. And your energy has to be protected as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like we are in a very noisy society right now. Noisy in like in a very intrusive way, like with technology and everything, even just in the sense that like you can be lulled into believing that you are making meaningful connection with your friends and with your family and people in your life because you have access to them quickly. They can heart a comment, a text message on your phone or on Instagram. It is not the same as getting to spend meaningful time. I just went in the city with my 4 best girlfriends who, from high school, and we don't all live that far away, but it is impossible for us all to get together on a Saturday night. It was the most valuable night out I've had in a year, probably.
That's great. And I bet you could have thought of 10 excuses to not do it. I bet all 4 of you girls could have thought of 10 excuses.
You did.
In the past, I have. There was like snow on the ground. And I said, there's a little, the flurries are on the ground. The train's not going to run.
Not doing it.
It was the 3rd night in a row that we had to be in New York City. We live in the suburbs of New York City. And it's like annoying to get in this time of year. It really is. And I had said to Douglas and to them, like very honestly, I said, man, there were so many moments where I said, I had to like pep talk myself, but it was worth it. It was so worth it.
Oh, that's great. Do each of you are citing these examples of recent time investments you have made with your separate groups of guy friends and girlfriends. What do you notice when you are each pouring into your friendships? What do you notice in terms of the impact on your marriage, your connection with each other?
I think that, especially for us, because we work together too. And the lines between professional and personal are
insanely blurred,
more than they should be, more than most.
Yeah.
And so for us, I think it really does like release almost like a pressure valve a little bit when we get to go and not even to go vent about our own relationship or what's going on with us professionally or personally, but I like to go so that I don't have to talk about me at all. Or we don't have to talk about something that directly relates to stuff that we're both personally invested in because we both are personally invested in so many of the same things.
I think you just have to change up the environment is so important, right? It's not just the time, but also the place. It's like watching a low budget Netflix special. There's only, 4 sets in the whole series. Like it's in the car, the apartment, the park, and maybe a restaurant. And that's like, why have I been in the same 4 places for a whole season of a show? Kind of get a little crazy here, but I think changing the scenery here and kind of stimulating your senses in a way.
It does bring us back refreshed.
Yeah.
It does.
Yes.
100%.
And we're very, very self-aware with how, Heather said it best, how much time we spend together from, just working in our personal lives. We didn't work out together. And this is not for most people, I get it. But trust me,
you're raising a family together.
Of course, raising the kids.
Yeah.
We do like 99% of stuff together. It only makes it that much more critical that we cherish the time that we're actually not together, because it's so tilted, in one direction. So yeah, very, very much important to have that valve there.
So stay there for just a moment. Like I want to just like locate the two of you in terms of your work before we dive into the specifics of your book and what you've offered to couples. So the two of you have been together since college, and you had separate tracks in your career, and then not too long ago, Heather came into Douglas's business, Bonafide Wealth. And I want to hear a little bit about that, just that transition and what it's been like for both of you.
So, I think what's interesting is when one partner is growing a business from day one, I think it's very hard for the partner to extricate themselves from that growth, from the seed up, right? So like in many respects, I have been moonlighting as Doug's business consultant since before Bonafide Wealth even existed. And, one of the things, and which I wanted to be, not only because I believe in him, but I believe in the work. I believe in the values behind the mission of what we put together, which was like, we started this wealth management firm born from our peers and the struggles we had after the Great Recession for millennials, like feeling like nobody was investing in us at a time when we needed it, not knowing what our future looks like, not knowing what our employment prospects look like, or what our lives would look like. So many of us were saddled in student loan debt and all these issues that I had personally experienced too. So I'm invested, right? I've been invested from the start, but it was important for our financial landscape that I held down my steady corporate law job for a long time to act as a hedge against Doug's ability to go out in the world and take these financial risks. I was the grounding force in many respects, emotionally and financially for the family for a long time. But I think we had reached a point. We had two small children during COVID. When COVID started, we had an 11-month-old and a 4-year-old.
Fun times.
Doug's career had taken off, and the power dynamics over money in our relationship were shifting. Before that time, as it was, like I was once the breadwinner, and then now he was earning 3 times my salary, and we were in a global pandemic with 2 small babies at home.
You had no familiar touchstones, like everything was flipped.
None. And it was an interesting time where I started to really tell myself some very damaging and harmful messages about whose time was worth more. And it wasn't just him putting it on me. It was a lot of me putting it on me too. And, I feel like I blinked and I was working 3 jobs. I was a full-time caregiver because my kids were home. Our kids were home full-time. I was a full-time corporate lawyer working from home. And I was a full-time business consultant for Bonafide Wealth because he was operating the firm all around us. And I was
I needed her.
And I was just always there. And so, when we reached the critical moment, a few years into COVID and with some external factors that kind of sent us into this like decision-making moment of should I join the firm and leave my corporate job? It felt like the natural progression of something we both had wanted for a long time. That doesn't mean that we had any idea of what it would look like or how it would feel now that I've come on board. And it's been a journey. The last 3 years, not just writing a book about love and money, but just me foregoing a corporate salary that I've had for more than a decade and realizing how tethered my self-worth was to bringing in a paycheck. That was such a huge piece of this. Like truly, I was unwrapping so much of my own money behaviors and identities alongside researching for this book. It was a wild, like meta experience.
For me, the level of, comfort that Heather had provided me during that time. I'll be very honest here and tell you it was pretty comfortable. Like she was holding it down, and I was able
really
to grow.
enjoyed my care.
Basically, we're saying it was excellent.
Yeah. What is not to enjoy about this particular situation if you're me? But we love each other a great deal. And Heather is an extremely ambitious person, and her life was never going to be just holding down a corporate job in the world of insurance and law for the sake of me growing. And that's where I had a realization like, okay, I know there's going to be a level of discomfort, that I have to deal with, because all change requires getting comfortable with discomfort. And for me, it was diving into that and doing a lot of self-work around that to ensure that the space was created for us to be able to step into what became our new era writing this book and what we do together as a team for the firm.
I'm thinking of like the parallel of like when a couple moves in together, it's like, do we move into my place? Do we move into your place? Or do we move into a new place together? And I feel like your story has elements of, in some ways, this was a we project from the beginning because it was birthed, right? There was no bona fide wealth without Heather being there strategically, psychologically, emotionally. But there also, I imagine you had to, Douglas, as sort of the face or the head of the firm, like you had to shift your relationship with the business to create space, to make room for Heather. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not something you have an answer for right away. There's a huge component of this is we're going to find out what needs to be moved around, what time needs to be made. And
I think also, there's, even though I've been around, right? I've been around and I've been watching the whole time. There was a level of autonomy and invisibility that he got to enjoy when I was not.
You're going to see what I really do.
Right. She's all up in there now.
Right. I'm all up in it. It was like, that was the joke, was like, party's over.
Yeah.
Like I showed up and
Mom's
the
home.
The emperor has no clothes. No. Also this idea that we started out thinking, okay, Heather's going to focus on these activities, whether it was, more engagements with corporation, whatever it was. We learned very quickly that that's actually not the direction we would be going in. And that kind of brings us to, write a book. Let's write a book about a topic that we thought was extremely important, very much not talked about in the spaces of wealth management. And we caught a little fire on that. And we got excited around it. And sure enough, we put 2 years of our life towards it.
The book turned out so well. Like it is an excellent resource. And I'm really, really excited to be like, putting some wind beneath your wings here because it's really wonderful. And I think you've done something that I always do whenever I have a chance to talk about money and love, which is really understanding that money operates at these two levels. It is incredibly concrete. It is dollars and cents, and the depth at which it awakens childhood wounds, questions of meaning, questions of purpose, questions of self. And the two of you really held on to those two tracks so well. Why was it important for you guys to orient yourselves to both the technical and the psychological elements of money?
Well, money has been such a huge part of my life, my personal life, and, my past, my baggage, my trauma from childhood, and what I carried into adulthood and what I brought into our marriage, I think, and when I was experiencing yet another like transformative change, and I saw the way that money and my beliefs around money were showing up in our relationship and our business once again, I thought to myself, how could a couple, right? Who's educated, never at a loss for words, ambitious, and who's married to a money expert, have lost our way, right? I think that you can lose your way through omission and action, right? And I had fallen out of the money conversation because it was too emotional, because I was too wrapped up in it personally. And I thought to myself, how can we create a resource that acknowledges, right? I'll go first. And that was very important to me. And relatability is such a big piece of our firm's mission and of the values that I think makes working with us so attractive to clients. but also like, how can I translate that to these deeper meaning conversations around money? Because I felt for so long like I didn't have the words for what I was experiencing because it was so complex. And it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just my past. It was my present. It was the way that I was treated at work as a young mother. It was the way that I tethered my self-worth to my paycheck. It was the outside voices of things that I believe were holding power over me. It was my fear of the unknown of the future. It was all of these things. It's so complex. There's a reason why people have such a hard time talking about it. And I became obsessed with this idea of not only unraveling my own relationship with money, weaving that story throughout this book, but speaking with so many different people about these like really taboo, but like nuanced small snippets of these issues. And because I wanted people to read it and say, oh my God,
That's me.
Read this, these short little, you need to come sit down and read this to their partner and say, this is the one thing is us. And if we can just start talking about it better, then maybe we'll be able to get to the root here and move forward and make some meaningful change.
That's great. In the family therapy field, we oftentimes say like everything is everything all at the same time. And that is what it is with money. Like everything is everything all at the same time. But you did a very excellent job by, just the way that when listeners hold the book in their hands, they'll see there's these 5 pillars that you move us through. And each one has these like different, you basically take us for a walk. You're like, okay, now stand here. There's some stuff I want to show you here. Okay, now come over here. I want you to stand here and look at this. It's excellent. One of the points that you make is that there's actually no amount of money that a couple can have that helps them get out of the conflict around money. Like, why are we so bad at talking together about money in our intimate relationships?
And you've seen it across the board with clients.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the stats we put in the book is that the divorce rate amongst billionaires is the same amongst us common folk. It does illustrate this point that it doesn't matter how much money you have because it's our identity, right? What we're tapping into is, something that is very much at the core of who we are. And this is why I love the whole first section of the book. That's my favorite section of the book, which is beginnings, because it's the self-work that needs to be done to really put yourself in a position to even communicate with your partner around what's going on and to give them the perspective of where you're coming from. You are doing the daily stuff. Like, why did my partner react over an expense? Or I just said something when they flew off the handle.
Because it's not just identity, but it's also our insecurities, right? We carry these beliefs from a young age. And you don't just lose them when you make a lot of money. Like I think,
or marry someone.
Yeah,
just you don't become a homogeneous blob of one person just because you found someone. You're still your own person. I mean, this is stuff that shows up in your culture, in your religion,
and also in trauma. When we spoke to, this was important trauma. Because I think that for me personally, this was something that I think I brushed to the side in my own life for a really long time. This concept that I think a lot of people do. You think, well, I'm objectively successful now, so it's all for the best, or it all worked out, and this notion, this like wash over everything you've been through. Well, it all worked out, so I guess
don't need to worry about the stuff that happened.
I guess that it's almost invalidating, and it's invalidating by validating your present status by saying like, well, it's all for the best.
It's sweeping it under the rug.
You struggled, but we're okay now. And the truth is, that did not help.
Your body's like, I don't give a crap what year it is. I'm still holding that memory of when I was 8 years old and dad lost his job and.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When we don't talk about these things or understand these things with our partners, not good things tend to happen. Our relationships don't grow. We don't move forward. We don't become the team or do the teamwork that is required to get to the joint goals that you have for yourselves.
And we don't build empathy.
Yeah.
Like we don't have empathy for our partner. We don't let them in too.
And we set the stage for transgressions, for breaches of trust. You guys, I think I've seen a sort of spectrum of sort of advice around transparency, translucency, but you all really staked your claim around transparency. And you give us a stat that about 40% of couples, there's been a secret held around money, which I do think is one of the outcomes of not having conversations. Why? Tell us about how you came to really believe and want couples to value transparency.
Well, I think that there's So in a definition of financial infidelity that we adopted, which I think is very, I love it. One, because I'm like a lawyer and it's a very like lawyerly definition.
Lawyers
It's
love two prongs. They love prongs.
Well, we love, yeah, right.
We love prongs.
Criteria.
So I think this is important though, and why we got behind this, because there's a notion of you doing something that you think your partner may have had, may not agree with, a financial decision your partner may have disagreed with. But then you go about it in a way where you intentionally cover it up. Two prongs. And the second one is an act in and of itself. It's not just and that is where, to your point, we find ourselves in these moments that are so damaging. It's not the thing that went wrong. Even if you made a choice, right? Even if you made a choice and the choice wasn't a good one. We talk about mistakes, and mistakes are so subjective. Like, we all make decisions. Some of them work out better than others. Sometimes, you should have told your partner about this thing before you did it. And that wasn't great that you didn't do it. But then when you go and you cover that up, taking that extra step to hide something from your partner that could actually have serious material consequences on your livelihood and your life, that is an act that we believe is as damaging as any other type of infidelity. So when we talk about transparency, to your point, that comes directly through conversations about the good and the bad. This isn't just sitting down with your numbers. It's, I think I may have done something that wasn't good. You know what I mean? It could be, right?
Yeah. Which is so important for offloading shame, right? The things that we don't. So it's like, you are hurting it's a breach of trust between you and your partner, but it is also you reinforcing your likely pre-existing shame-loaded story about money and mistakes and, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, and I love the second prong is really important because it gives people a gut check. I can relate to that. Like the time where I've done a thing financially and I've thought about, what's my next move here? How can I turn it down for Todd? How can I not tell Todd? And it's in that urge to cover, that's when I know I'm playing with fire. So I think that two prong that you are offering us gives us a chance to do that gut check of oof, I can feel that desire to put a little bit of secrecy over here. That urge is telling me something important that is worthy of my attention.
And so much of it goes back to communication, because if you keep those open lines of communication with your finances, you will feel less inclined to hide that thing. When you set the stage and the environment to be having regular conversations around money, like you said, it inherently removes the shame around discussing things that have gone well and things that have gone poorly, right? So you're normalizing the fact that not everything goes the way you have planned, because that's life. Like whether it was a really bad decision or just something that didn't work out, we still can't anticipate everything. It's the act of taking that off the table that is really so damaging.
When you have a fear that your partner won't understand why you did, it's because you didn't communicate with them something about yourself. That is when that lie comes in. That is when that behavior comes in, and it emphasizes how important it is to have these conversations with your partner, so you don't have the fear that they won't understand. Right? Oh, I made a mistake. I'm fearless about letting my partner know I made a mistake. And then you get into a conversation about why you did it and what you're going to do to improve, because that's life and you're a human being.
I think that's so important, Douglas, because it's like you're saying that the moment that I have an urge to hide something because I'm telling myself a story, my partner wouldn't understand, right there, I'm either buying into a story that is fueled by people in my family as I was growing up didn't understand. People in my family told me that I was reckless or impulsive, or something's happening in the space between us. Something is not safe enough in our emotional ecosystem for me not to come to you. Yeah, it's an important indicator, one way or the other. A me thing I'm bringing in, or a we thing that somehow we've eroded openness in this relationship. And so I'm having an urge to not tell you.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why in this section, we also speak about the difference between mistakes and something less than a mistake. And how do you talk to your partner about their mistakes? Because this is so important when it comes to financial confidence, that you are not making mountains out of molehills of little things. If your partner brought a small amount of consumer debt into your marriage, into your relationship, and you help them pay it off. It's just one example. You should not be holding that over their head for the,
Duration.
for the long term. And because what that does is, one, it sets the landscape for something like this. Like, I'm going to hide a future financial misstep from my partner because they really harped on it this one time that I found myself in a small amount of consumer debt. And also it erodes that confidence, right? Like your ability to believe that you deserve to have a seat at the table when it comes to talking about money. Like, that matters. That's another way that you set yourself up for
Opposite of empowerment.
Yeah.
It's also not, we're framing this in terms of mistakes, which, by the way, on the show, I call them FGOs, fucking growth opportunities.
I love that. I love it.
I don't call them mistakes.
I'm going to use that from here on out. FGOs.
Please feel free. But it's also, I think it's also choices, right? Like, this is a choice I want to make with our money. So can we be empowered enough to come to our partner with our FGOs, but also with our desires?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why, when we talk about money, we're not just talking about, like you said, there's dual tracks here. There's the money that we have, the tangible money that we have. And then there's the goals we have for ourselves, right? The things that we want, not just tangible things, but career goals, personal goals, family goals. And we need to find ways to open those doors because the conversations and the tools you need for both conversations are the same, right?
Mm-hmm. We've been circling between present and past. And one of the things that you guys offer in the beginnings section of the book is a really nice question that you ended up asking the couples that you interviewed for your research. You ask, when you first became aware of money, how did it make you feel? And I want you to talk to us about what you love about that question. Why is that a helpful way in to helping couples understand their origin stories about money?
Heather and I, again, always will take the lead here because we think that's fair. And when we asked ourselves these questions, for me, as someone who grew up in a very entrepreneurial household where, the lessons were go out there and do it, go build that thing. Nothing is really stopping you. I had grandparents on both sides that ran businesses, a father that was in business with his father. And, my brother and I, we took that note and we ran with it. We started our own businesses as kids, and to this day started a business. And, for Heather, and she'll tell you, it's something completely different. But because asking that question, it's almost like a main line into that identity question, into that, well, where are you coming from when you think about money? For me, it was growth and opportunity. Someone could tell you the exact opposite. Money made me feel sad because we didn't have enough of it, or there was food insecurity, or it could go the other way. It was so much privilege. I never got to make a decision on my own, right? Everything was taken care of for me. So when I went into the real world, I had no clue what to do.
The thing that couples and individuals would choose to share in that moment, more often than not, was still playing out in their adult relationship with money. That is how we realized very quickly how important that question was. And we spent a lot of time on it. We let couples go long on it, even when it was way too long.
It is definitely...
It became couples therapy.
Right. It was 30 minutes of that. I'm like, well, we have 20 minutes left to speak. When are we getting next on the calendar? Because we spent the hour talking about your earliest money memory, and that's okay. But I think it really, like with so many of the couples, it really, really showed up. It showed up in the present too.
Yeah, it goes deep and it goes fast. So, it takes them there, and you're in for, a solid 30 minutes of unwrapping a lot of stuff in someone's past when you do that.
With a really nice takeaway question for couples to begin this conversation or to deepen this conversation about money. Because it's easy for couples to get stuck at the dollars and cents, transactional, budgeting, those kinds of questions. I think, and that work is important, but I think the way that you're framing this is that conversation is a different conversation than one that starts with, when you first became aware of money, what were your feelings about money?
One of the main goals around the book is to be curious about your partner. And when you just fixate on the numbers and who makes what and who spends what, you're not getting really too far. You're surface level there. This is what takes you into the exploratory environment of your partner. This is where you're going to find a story you've never heard of. And if you're now telling stories to your partner that you've been with, whether it's a couple years or a couple decades, you find a story you've never heard of, there, something, good will come out of that if you take the time to listen to it and talk about it. And I think that just taps right into what we're trying to do here.
Well, on a topic, this comes up with all those difficult topics with money and sex, parenting. We get really myopic. We get really focused on our tender spots, our defensiveness, our rationale. And it's so, I feel like this is the heart of couple therapy, right? It's I will say to partner A, let's you and I just try to slow down here and really understand partner B. Let's really be curious about partner B's experience because it's different than your experience. And that is really helpful, right? Suddenly now a partner who's quote unquote controlling about money, the whole story, my partner is controlling about money feels radically different when you have a compassionate understanding of what it felt like when they were 6 years old, 12 years old. It's really different.
Absolutely. And this notion of your story is yours, no matter whose was worse. And that felt very important to me, not just on a relational level, but I experienced that even with friends growing up. I think that you hit certain weird transitions with different groups of friends, and there's different, you meet people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, you meet people from different educational backgrounds. I don't know if that's just a function of being in law school in New York City, and there's a lot of jealousy and some very interesting folks that I've met.
It's a competitive place.
It's a competitive place.
Yeah.
And I think that, competition can look for space closest to home. And, that was something that was really important to put up front for me, which was this idea that your life isn't a race to the bottom, especially with your partner. It's not a question of who had it worse. Each of your feelings needs to be validated for the experience that you have. Your perception of your conditions is what matters to this, right?
You need perspective.
Yeah.
You need to hear their stories and understand where they're coming from, regardless of where it is, and say, okay, I've now gained the perspective of why my partner feels the way they do and thinks the way they do.
And I'm not just viewing it through the lens of how my life.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you're contextualized, if you think your feelings are the only feelings that matter here, you might want to sit down.
Right.
I got some news for you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely an understanding your partner that you can gain the ability to communicate better.
I'm thinking about when I teach my Marriage 101 students at Northwestern, and when I talk to them about money, I think an atmosphere like college, like law school, it can kind of create this illusion that everyone is the same around socioeconomic status. And so if you partner with somebody in that atmosphere where socioeconomic status sort of feels invisible, then you partner without really understanding the impact. And I will tell you, and you make this point in the book, that the impact, we have to be really careful how we talk about privilege, but I will tell you that some of the most complex money, love, loyalty stories in the couples I have worked with are the couples where there's a lot of generational wealth in the family. And you guys go so far in the book as to capitalize the family, capital T, capital F. And when there is one partner who's from the family or two partners who are from the family, those tangles are so profound. And I'm really glad that you guys, address that in the book because there's a layer. And So I go ahead and talk to us a little bit about that, about the family culture and the impact of generational wealth on couples. But then I want to ask you about prenups.
Oh man, it was so hard. This was one of those things that I really wanted to be sure that we covered, not only because I was, objectively privileged. I had objective privilege growing up, but my money came with baggage. It came with strings attached. It was dangled over my head like a carrot. And it caused me to feel very unworthy at various phases of my life. And it also created a lot of pressure and pressurized situations that led me to make financial decisions that I came to regret. And it is very, right, like you said, like this is like very, very complex. But in terms of power dynamics between you and, let's say, a spouse, I think, we need to be willing to have these conversations about the way that one partner's privilege shows up in our relationship and what pieces of this we're willing to allow in. Because when we're not talking about it, then it inherently will show up. You're not going to be able to noodle your way around the fact of one family, let's say, providing financial support to you without you two having a conversation about, one, what that means, rather than me. Look at me. The lawyer's about to go down 5 prongs. 1, this, 2, that. But no, it's true.
Yeah. You think about the strings that are attached in these situations and who owns what and the power dynamics that inherently become part of, that dynamic, it gets...
Unless you take active steps to mitigate the risks of the negative outcomes happening, which, to your point, and I think what you want to bring up next is prenups, because this is one area that can help solve for that.
The point about the partner who is, who's from the capital T, capital F family, I think so often there's an urge there that let me manage my family so that to protect you over here from the impact of my family and these strings. And it doesn't work. It ends up blowing up. It has got to be the two of you looking together at, the impact of if we take this money, how we take this money, why we take this money, how we protect our relationship from the impact of taking this money.
Yeah, you can't build up that wall between it. You got to break that one down real quick.
And I think that wall goes up from a desire to protect the spouse, but it does not. It doesn't do it.
Right.
It isolates them.
You make 2 really good points around prenups, and your advice is make sure for the person who is marrying into the family where you're being asked to do the prenup, you're saying to that person, make sure you have your own lawyer to review it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
This is so important.
And then you also want the couple to have their own financial advisor, separate and apart from the family's financial advisor. But yeah, tell us, what do you want couples where there's going to be a prenup to keep in mind?
Yeah, first and foremost, prenups are okay. They're designed to protect everyone at a time. You're thinking clearly, and you hope you never get to a point where you need to put it into play and start dividing things up.
Well, but I think also prenups have caught a bad rap over the years, but I think that their image is being rehabilitated these days, because a prenup is not just setting your relationship up to fail. A prenup is outlining expectations for the duration of the relationship as well, especially in situations like this where one person, an adult child maybe, is bringing into the marriage wealth or the future promise of wealth or regular financial support from their family. This can outline those expectations, and you can lay all your cards on the table up front, because you will have to address these things at some point in your relationship.
When you don't, the guesswork only gets more and more complex, and it only gets heavier as that relationship moves on and people age. And those expectations Heather's talking about, they only grow bigger and bigger, or they morph into things because people live their lives and the family evolves. People don't talk to each other. People get back together.
And also the thing that you don't want to happen if you are a spouse marrying into a family of wealth is to lose yourself in that. Lose your financial agency because you never needed to work. You don't want that to happen. You don't want to lose your values into you don't want them to be subsumed by the values of the family. And that's one of the reasons why we suggest, hey, wouldn't it be great if the two of you together worked with your own independent financial advisor, maybe separate and apart from a family office or whoever's helping the family? You may not have those family funds that become a part of your work with the financial advisor, but even if you're setting up a plan with your own...
Separate these two things, right? The objective advice you're learning to get from your own advisor to ideally working in your best interest as a couple. And the actual investment and management part of that often is,
But what it does is it creates a landscape for you and your partner, and likely in many instances for the adult child of the family, to be examining their own values as an individual, maybe even for the first time, because we don't know how they've been controlled and how they've been influenced by the wealth they've been supported with for all these years. So it's critical for the foundation of this new relationship to have an opportunity to explore what that would look like just for them.
It's in addition to, not in replacement of. It's another wonderful tool in that couple's tool belt to help them navigate their lives when you have the family.
Our discomfort with prenups, it reflects our discomfort, it reflects our highly romanticized notions of love. I think about this too, just in terms of couples. Like I'm thinking about like when I'm working with an individual client, who's starting a relationship, and I'm kind of hearing their side of the journey into this relationship. And one of the questions is like, at what point do I find out how much money this person makes? At what point do I share how much money I make? At what point do we talk about our debt? So all of like this idea that we can't and shouldn't be having those conversations is a reflection. Like we become that way because of the romanticized culture that we are all, sort of soaking up all the time. But those conversations are vital. They're just part of, and they don't have to mean anything, right? We get to be in charge of the meaning that we make of those conversations. Thinking about couples who are dating, who are early in their relationships, how early do you want couples to be talking about money, and where do you want them to begin?
So I love this question because there are so many ways to learn about someone you're dating or early on in your relationship without deliberately saying, so how much money you make? How well is your family? You're not going to do it. Don't do that. Simply being inquisitive about how they grew up, what life was like in the summer. What'd you do in the summer when you were as a kid? These are revealing questions that can paint pictures around what kind of socioeconomic class people in. You know what? I always got hand-me-downs from my sister versus, oh yeah, I'd always go shopping with my mom, or I'd go to a nice camp, or things like that.
And these are good entry points. Like when we were talking about first, second, third date material. These are great entry points to learn about people's early financial life and about the way, what do you choose to do for fun now? How do you like to spend your free time? These are great questions to start to understand a little bit more about folks. But in terms of when to dig into the real numbers, certainly before you move in together, certainly before you begin making any major financial decisions together. I mean, look, we begin the book with a very real story about how we were on our honeymoon, sitting next to a couple fighting about money.
It was their first time ever talking about it. They chose to do it on their honeymoon in Italy. Yeah. And it was wild.
They were uncovering who had debt for the first time, credit card debt, student loan debt. A lot of assumptions were being made about whose parents were going to help them with these things. I mean, it's certainly not the time to wait until after you're in I would say, and I think you would agree, that if you believe that there is a future with someone, that is the time. That is the time.
Yeah, somewhere between knowing you have a future and actually getting into financial commitments with that person, usually like sharing a place, is when you can start to build upon those foundational components of a financial life together. So I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Thinking about that couple at the table next to you, what I would want for them is that they forgive themselves and each other for the ways in which their family culture, the collective culture really colluded to create the conditions where they stayed silent. That truly would be an FGO. Like, oh my God, that's our origin story. Like that happened. We are where we are. What do we learn from this, and how do we protect ourselves going forward?
We just did a show of hands recently in a room that we were speaking in to about 60, 70 people of how many people in the room knew that had their parents speaking about money openly in their household. Yeah, and it was way less than half.
Barely a third.
Barely a third said money was openly talked about and discussed in our household, to the point that I understood that this was happening as a teen and young adult.
There's an expression in personal finance, whether it's around investing or when, it's the best time to start any of these positive things in, your financial life. And the expression is, the first best time to start investing your day was yesterday. And the second best time is today. So the good news here is for this couple, on the beach, yes, I hope they do forgive themselves. And I hope they recognize that they can start today. They're young, got married, everything's ahead of you. And I even say this to folks who are seeking, retirement and they're in their late 50s and they feel they're so far behind. I say, there's a pathway there. Might not be the one you ideally have wanted, but we can get there and you can do that today. It's the I can't do it defeatist attitude that will forever put an L on the scoreboard. So.
That's right. Okay, well, as we move to wrap up, any final words or things you want to be whispering into the listener's ear? I think we've covered a lot of good ground here. Any final?
Got a solid takeaway.
I do.
What's yours?
It's just that this work is a practice. And our goal is just to improve your communication and to go deeper and to open doors that haven't been opened before. But it's not a one-time thing. I mean, I think, so much of our society now is and the content we consume, it's
2-day delivery.
Yeah. 2-day delivery on solving all your financial problems. Or here's the 5 steps you can take to improve your life. You know what? You can't optimize this because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But what you can do is improve your practices, have more empathy for your partner, and just be willing to open up the door.
Yeah, I love these undertones of the long game that you have to play here, right? Physical health, mental health, financial health. They care about you if you don't care about them. But for me, it's this idea that you don't win. This is a game you're playing forever, and you don't win the game. There's no winning the game. There's just affording yourself the ability to evolve and continue playing the game at different seasons of your life, which is why having that practice is so important. It makes you adaptable. It makes you proactive. It allows you to pivot when, life's going to do what it always does and throws curveballs left and right. So yes, have a practice and just recognize there's no win. The winning is playing.
The winning is being there.
That's such a good point. I mean, think about that, as Todd and I in our young 50s, the conversations we're having about money now are different than the conversations we had in our 20s and 30s and 40s. And it's not just because our financial picture has changed, it's because we've changed, right? Our relationship with money has changed. Yeah, so it has to be a practice because the whole thing is evolutionary and iterative. And yeah, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, we've got links in the show notes for where people can go to grab your fantastic new book, Money Together, How to Find Fairness in Your Relationship and Become an Unstoppable Financial Team. Where else do you want people to go to learn more from you and with you?
Well, we write a weekly newsletter called The Joint Account over on Substack, which you can find at readthejointaccount.com. And you can find out more about us and about our firm and about our social and where we are. All of that you can find on our website, domoneytogether.com.
Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Heather and Douglas, for joining me today and for making talking about money so very approachable. Money is at the intersection of so many core aspects of our identity, and it makes good sense that it's hard to talk about. Naturally, that makes it even more important for us to talk about it, and I'm grateful that we have resources like Heather and Douglas's book, Money Together, to help us develop a practice for having these conversations. For links to their book, Money Together, as well as where to learn more about the Boneparths, check out our show notes. Next week, I'm going to be talking with Jenny Wallace all about mattering and how feeling like we matter is pivotal for our well-being. Until next time, be well. Thank you for listening to our show. Our producers are Mary Chan and Katie Pagich of Organized Sound Productions. Our theme music was composed by Slade Warnkin. The show is executive produced by me, Dr. Alexandra Solomon. Do you have a relationship question that you want answered on the show? Visit reimagininglove.com to send in a written or audio question. Questions can be about intimate partnerships, family relationships, friendships, you name it. If you're looking for more love and relationship content, you can find me on Instagram at dr.alexandra.solomon or visit my website, dralexandrasolomon.com, where you'll find my blog as well as the Intimate Relationships 101 e-course based off of the popular class I teach at Northwestern University. Thank you for listening, and see you next week here on Reimagining Love.